coconut. Okay. It's way better than it tastes, but it is really sweet. Yes.
Okay, very good. So refer back to this one, this session, or the session we had with Michelle on challah making. You can do that at the at Temple Anshe Chesed's YouTube page, which is the same place you can join us for services. So you should be familiar with that.
I skipped the one. Excuse me. I skipped the one on challah making because all I have is a microwave.
Okay. Very good. So what we want to talk about this evening is we've spent a lot of time talking about Shabbat, the Shabbat beginning, and how we inaugurate Shabbat, the things that we do during Shabbat evening, especially the Friday night, and then Saturday morning. We've spent a little bit of time on not a lot, and really now what I wanted to talk about this evening is how you end. And in the same way that you began with a series of blessings that inaugurates and begins Shabbat, there are a series of blessings at the end to close Shabbat. And I have a background of stars, and that's with some purpose. You see, the idea is that when you see 3 stars in the sky on Saturday evening, that's the signal that Shabbat has actually ended, and that it's the appropriate time to formally end Shabbat and to begin the ceremony known as Havdalah. Now, that's in a traditional sense, and often for various different programmatic reasons, we may not exactly wait till we see 3 stars, especially if we're thinking of doing something in the summertime, when that could be 9:30, 10 o'clock, for instance. By the time you get to that sort of starry sky look. But in general, the idea being that you wait until those 3 stars are in the sky, as that is the time where the sun is absolutely set and gone. Actually, it's usually about an hour after sunset. So that Shabbat is a day going from Friday night to Saturday night, but in point of fact, it's really 26 hours, because you begin about an hour before sundown, and you bring Shabbat out about an hour after sundown happens on the Saturday night. So I'm going to share my screen. I have a little PowerPoint for us to kind of follow along with, which makes it easier. There we go.
That looks like the bread. Mm-hmm. It does, doesn't it?
So everybody can see that, I hope?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. We're going to talk first about the symbols used on Havdalah and what those symbols are. Then we'll take a look at the meaning behind the symbols. We'll actually see a video of Havdalah happening, sung beautifully. And then we'll talk a little bit about the more deeper meanings of these symbols. So, okay. If you begin on Friday night, what are the symbols of Friday night? You have what?
Candles
The
and
candles.
wine and wine.
And the challah.
Right. You have candles, wine, and challah. In that order, right? You have first, you light your candles, you bring in Shabbat, you thank God for the day of Shabbat by using a wine, and wine is a symbol of sweetness, joy. And then you use challah, which symbolizes all of the food that we're going to enjoy on Shabbat and any day of the week, actually. And at Havdalah, at the end of Shabbat, there are also three symbols. In this case, we have wine again, because wine is a symbol of joy, and we have been able to enjoy this Shabbat experience, and so we'll also have wine then. We have spices, which are beautifully fragrant. Usually, it's cinnamon and cloves. It can be lots of different things. You can use sweet smelling orange peels. You can do pretty much any fragrant, nicely smelling spices are fine. If you want a little project, you can take cloves and push them into an orange. So you cover the orange in cloves, and then you let it dry. It'll sort of dry out, and the orange peel will then seal around the cloves, and you will have a sweet smelling orangey, clovey kind of ball that you can use as your Havdalah spice box. Sometimes people do that using an etrog after Sukkot, after the harvest festival. So our three symbols rather for Havdalah are the wine, the symbol of joy, the spice box, which is filled with usually cinnamon and cloves, and that is an important one because it's there to console us. Shabbat is a time of excitement, of bringing together family and friends, and a time of rest. And it's said actually on by the mystics that on Shabbat we are given an extra soul. That God gives us this special Shabbat soul and fills us with this soul, and that at the end of Shabbat, this special soul leaves, and we are once again just alone, and and so the spices are there as a way of consoling us that this presence in our lives as Shabbat has ended, and we won't see it again for another week.
Bless you.
Excuse me. But we know that smells are one of the most important and most vivid memory triggers. And so when the rabbis tried to come up with a way of making sure that we would know that Shabbat is just a week away, they used these spices so that we could be reminded that last week we smelt these beautiful spices too, and it took us a week, but we got to Shabbat, and we were able to celebrate once again. A little bit of history. Uh, Actually, let me finish the symbols, and then we'll go back to the history. So we have the third symbol, which is the Havdalah candle, and you'll notice that it is not a candle like the candles that we have on Shabbat, which are two single wick candles. This candle is a braided candle, and usually it has 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 different kinds of wicks, and all of the wicks are there to symbolize the various elements of our lives that all come together and are woven and interwoven and come together on Shabbat. And so when we have this opportunity on Shabbat to bring these various different parts of our lives together and make them one and whole, that's part of this beginning this new week of celebrating that wholeness. And so you have the various different braided wicks to the Havdalah candle. Now, not all Havdalah, it's not necessary to have a Havdalah candle holder. Many Havdalah sets have them, many do not. It's really just a artistic or style kind of a thing. For that matter, you don't really need a proper box or container. You can simply use a bag or a little bottle or whatever. It doesn't really have to be anything to have your spices in them. But many people choose to use these more decorative or ceremonially designated artifacts. And it's a way of kind of increasing or beautifying the commandment or the mitzvah of celebrating Havdalah. And that can happen in lots of ways. So this is an example of a pretty sort of classic or traditional kind of a Havdalah set. You'll notice actually that it's not really a set. The three are all different, and they all come from really different places and time periods. Not really styled and connected. So the candle holder is quite modern. You can see that the Kiddush cup is very classic, and the spice box is also kind of mid-century-ish in terms of the styles.
It's not.
But but the style could be anything.
I ever need to get.
And for instance, here's another Havdalah set made by an artist called Emmanuel. So a pretty famous
Oh, that's beautiful. It is.
Israeli artist, and he does all of his work is in this painted wood, and it's all in incredibly vibrant colors, and lots of artistic details and designs. It's very busy. You know,
I
go
I
ahead.
got I got my Havdalah set in Israel. It's porcelain. It's beautiful.
Yeah, you can
Yeah,
have them out of almost any kind of a medium, right? They come in glass, they come in wood, they come in metals, they come in ceramics, they all sorts of things. And artists have throughout history been creating them, and especially the spice boxes themselves. And we'll see in a little bit about the spice box, but let's begin with the kiddush or the wine. Wine is seen as a symbol of joy, right? Wine in the ancient world was first of all, it was a safe drink because it was alcoholic, and so therefore didn't have as many possibilities of contaminants and microorganisms that might cause illness. So it was seen as preferred. The wine that they drank was not quite the wine that we have. It was, as far as we know, it was much more of a sort of a concentrate that was then mixed, and you would sort of water it down and be able to then drink it. But it was clearly seen as something that would enhance the joy. Now that doesn't mean, especially in our time, that one has to use a fermented grape product. If people either don't want to participate in alcohol beverages or want to they can't or they don't want to, they can certainly use grape juice. That it's totally fine. There's no restrictions there. So if Shabbat is about joy and peace and all of that, the 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 Kiddush cup, the wine, is that representation of the joy that we are able to share together, and the joy of being able to begin a new week. Right, Shabbat is the inauguration of a new week, a new time, an opportunity to once again thank God for the creation of the world, which we do on Shabbat, and then for the week which is about to come. Because there is no there's Friday evening at sundown you begin Shabbat, then there's 26 hours basically, and then you start a new week immediately. Right. So as soon as you celebrate Havdalah, that inaugurates a new week. So our spice boxes, and you can see from these that there can be many different kinds and styles of spice box. What you see here are predominantly Western European spice box varieties, mostly older. But you can see that there's lots and lots of detail here.
Red.
And this was seen as one of the ways to, again,
These are spice boxes.
to enhance or beautify the commandment.
Cow.
These spice boxes were traditionally made out of, silver or some kind of sort of precious metal, brass, copper, decorative metals, that kind of thing, or woods or ceramics, etc., etc. You can, again, as we talked about, and they're they kind of share a theme here, right? What sort of theme do you see as you look at these?
Castles.
Yeah, castles, right? Um, why of all things would they choose castles? Jews aren't known for their living in castles, right? So why would we choose castles?
Because of
God-
the starts? I don't know.
God is king.
Okay, great, Edie, fabulous.
Smarty.
Well done.
Yeah.
So if God is ruler of the universe, then and these spices are to console us that Shabbat is going to come again next week, which means that the creator of the universe has to make sure that the creative cycle happens again. Then it's housed in a representation of that heavenly court, right? So, in Jewish mystic tradition, there is a sense of a mirror, that there's that we down here mirror the heavenly court. So, in the same way that and the rabbis have lots of stories of the king of flesh and blood, which is a person, right? An earthly king, in other words, also has a responsibility and a reflection to the heavenly court, where God reigns. And in the same way that you would pay deference to a king of a human king, you would also then react and act in the same way with God. And so that's where a lot of our prayer choreography comes from. The idea that
Sovereign.
sometimes we're bowing, right? And this is that same sense of deference that you would display as if you were at a royal audience somewhere.
Who was the human king supposed to be then?
Well, the human king was whoever the king was. I mean, we had Israelite kings, King David, King Solomon. I mean,
Talking about now.
oh, I mean, we don't necessarily have
King, right.
have a Israelite king, but we certainly understand the concept of royalty,
Okay.
right? And the concept of reference to a ruler under whose auspices we live.
Mhm. Okay.
Right. I mean, we all have government officials that are treated with some royal deference, even when we don't necessarily like them.
Our president is supposed to be our, in quotes, king.
It
Oh God.
Yeah, exactly.
is a state, correct? I mean, and there are certain rituals that go along with holding the office of head of state. In
Okay.
our case, as a republic, our head of state is elected, and so the head of state, it is the office of the president that is venerated,
Yeah.
not necessarily the individual per se.
Okay,
Right. So
I guess.
the person who occupies the position or office of the president is accorded a certain series of leadership or kind of ritual behaviors, right? So, for instance, if a president walks into a room, everybody is supposed to stand.
Okay.
There,
Our president would like that.
well, let's leave politics.
Sorry.
Otherwise, we could fall down that deep, dark rabbit hole.
I
Yeah,
don't. Yeah.
yeah.
Please.
And
We're going to try not to. Carrie, go ahead.
you have these beautiful containers that have your spices in them. Do they get put away so that you can't smell the spice during the week? Okay, they do. All right. Because I'm thinking it's a beautiful set. I can't imagine wanting to hide it. And yet, if you didn't, you'd smell that spice all week long because of all the openings I can see.
So sometimes, and if you look carefully, whoops, let me back up here. If you look carefully, you'll see that some of them have doors.
Yes.
Okay, and some of them are sealed actually. So you can have them sitting on your tables, and you might just let them sit there, and you can then just for Havdalah you would open the door.
Mhm.
Oh,
Okay.
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 Others are like this one here. Whoops, no. Right, like this one, you can see has no doors. It's just simply open. Right. So if you had that sitting on your desk all week, you would certainly,
Yeah, so-
smell that. Although interestingly enough, cinnamon and cloves also have a tendency to settle. They will, unless you shake them around, you won't really smell them.
Okay.
But unless you sort of pass them through the air, they you won't really smell it very much. And so one of the traditions on Shabbat is to
Shake it first.
the spices so that you can smell them. And there are people who collect these spice box containers, and they're avid collectors, and there are ancient ones that date back almost almost 2,000 years. And you can have different. By the way, each country will have a different sort of tradition around these things. Each sort of general location will have different traditions. These ones are all pretty much, as far as I can tell, Western European, with the exception, perhaps of this. Well, why does it keep doing that? With the exception of this one, which looks a little bit more Eastern, but none of them have sort of a traditional, very Eastern, not European, but Eastern, from one of the Mediterranean countries, or not Mediterranean, but one of the Arab countries like Morocco or Tunisia or Yemen or Iran or Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, etc. Those would look a little bit different, and those ones typically were in the shape of pomegranates.
Oh,
They were pomegranates were seen as part of the kind of fragrancy or spices. Also, kind of used in decoration for a variety of reasons. One being that a pomegranate has many seeds, and so we would try to um, replicate that so that people would be as plentiful as the seeds of a pomegranate. Okay,
thank you.
yeah. Any other questions around the spice boxes? Okay, good.
Interesting.
So, the candle itself, right? The candle itself has these many wicks that are woven together, and they're lit, and it's a very dramatic looking piece. You can see there. It's very different than having a single wick on a candle, and that kind of is a way of symbolizing all the areas of our lives that come together on Shabbat. Our friends, our families, our communities, our sense of relating to our Creator. All of those things kind of circle around and are unified on Shabbat.
Mm.
The final blessing that we have, and we'll go through the blessings in a minute, is the blessing of separation. You can see here, this is another version of a Havdalah set, by the way, and you can see here in this section, they're about to dip the candle into the wine itself. And that's at the very end of the ceremony. The way that you end Havdalah and end Shabbat is you extinguish this braided candle into the wine. Now, sometimes people pour the wine on the plate, and they extinguish the candle by putting the candle on the plate, or they often will just dip the candle right into the wine itself. And that's a way of in the same way that you begin Shabbat in darkness and move toward light. And by lighting the candles, you begin Shabbat. By extinguishing the candle, you end. Okay, I want to talk about the blessings. There are 4 blessings. Hope everybody can see those. Those are the first 2. The first 2 blessings. The first one is the blessing over the wine, and not a blessing of the wine itself. It is simply using the wine as the vehicle with which to thank God for Shabbat that we have had. It's the same blessing that we began Shabbat with. We begin Shabbat with the blessing over the wine in the same way, and we'll end Shabbat in that same vein. Okay, and so the blessing that we say is exactly the same words, but kind of bookending. And then you have the. But wait, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Hold on. And then the blessing over spices, which is, blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who creates all kinds of spices. Melech haolam borei minei v'samim, who is the creator of these fragrant spices. And the idea being, of course, as we talked about, is to thank God for the frequency of Shabbat, and that we're consoled that Shabbat is only 1 week away for us. That Shabbat's only this not too distant time and experience. Again, the blessings can be pretty much anything you want. Interestingly enough, in modern Israel, if you asked somebody for a bisamim, you're likely to get something that many of us had in college and was used for a different purpose than we might have on Shabbat. Because that's the slang for marijuana in Israel.
What is?
Bisamim.
Oh. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
You trying to remember that one, Bernice, for when you go to Israel or something?
No.
I am.
No.
Is it legal in Israel?
Yes,
How do you know?
I've been there. I've been there, but I don't know. But I'm
Okay,
pretty
you got
sure
out of that one.
Yeah, having led many trips with many teenagers,
yeah, I would think it is.
they take their anti-drug laws pretty seriously. It's a little less restricted now. Um, it's a pretty serious restriction, and they take it seriously. So, whenever I was leading, especially college kids,
Yeah.
I always had to advise them that they should buy themselves a brand new backpack
Hmm.
because
Just for that?
if there are trace smells in said backpack that they're carrying with them,
Oh,
that could get picked up by sensors and dogs and all kinds of
yeah.
whatever. And I really didn't want to have to bail them out of an Israeli jail.
Okay. So marijuana is not legal in Israel?
It's not.
Oh, okay, I was wrong, which is rare.
Okay.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
A significant portion of the world's opium actually comes from the Bekaa Valley, which is just outside of Israel. Actually, it's in the north, but it's really on the other side of the border in Lebanon.
Oh, I didn't know
And
that.
that's where a lot of the world's opium comes from, believe it or not. Not that this is Shabbat, but there you go. We have our wine and our spices, and then we have the blessing with the candles. And here's a difference, right? So you begin with candles, right? And the candle blessing that begins Shabbat says, "Thank you, God, for giving us the opportunity to light these lights of Shabbat." And at the end of Shabbat, we say, "Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, creator of the lights of fire, Borei Meorei Ha'esh." And because it's a totally different experience with that braided candle, which is multi-wicked, multi-flame, and it has a completely different kind of affect to it. And so the blessing is also different because we're thanking God for the variety of things that comes together in terms of, the different kinds of lights in our lives is a kind of metaphor that's used. We have the lights and the inspiration of our work, of our families, of our learning, of things that we care deeply about, and they all sort of centralize and come together on Shabbat. And the final blessing is the blessing of separation. The blessing that says, "Thank you, God, for allowing us to separate, to take that time of Shabbat that we've been talking about for the last several weeks and make it kadosh, sacred, holy, separate, unique." Right? We set that aside and say, this is separate. This is something that we're going to put aside, and we're going to mark the time and make sure that it is a time where we can do different things than we might do the rest of the week. And we help ourselves, giving us some guidelines and some restrictions and things that we do and things that we don't do, etc., etc. So the blessing begins with, "Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, Hamavdil ben Kodesh lechol," who separates between the Kodesh, the sacred, special, which is Shabbat, lechol, which is the ordinary. And then it goes on to give us a little bit more of an explanation of what this kind of separation really means. Bein or lachoshech, between light and darkness. Bein yom hashvi'i, between the seventh day, l'sheshet yamei hama'aseh, and the 6 days of work, the 6 days of creation. So we have these kind of poetic, balances or right. You have light and darkness, the seventh day of rest with the 6 days of creation. And then you end with, "Blessed are you, Adonai, Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lechol," who separates the sacred from the ordinary. And it's a way for us to kind of, and then at that point, that's when you would extinguish the actual flame. And that way you can hopefully understand or help each other understand that that we have an opportunity or a responsibility to re-engage with the world, right? We have to go back to work, right? It's the equivalent of our Monday morning alarm clock, right? The alarm clock goes off on Monday morning and away we go. And in Israel, you will often find that Saturday night, people will return to their work. So if you have a restaurant or a shop or any kind of retail experience, very often it will open Saturday night for a few hours. And that way people can kind of celebrate that new week, and many people will go out and have a meal and go walking and go to shops and do all kinds of things on Saturday night. So how does this all kind of happen or play itself out? Boy.
I didn't do it. Not me.
Somebody,
Here we go. Okay.
the rabbi did it.
Why isn't Edie singing?
So that's one of the that is one of the classic nigunim or wordless songs that introduce the prayers. And the prayers will be sung through each one, and every time in between we'll return to that wordless prayer. So here we go. Oops. Maybe.
Maybe not. There we go.
lecho, hamavdil ben kodesh lecho. Yai lai la 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 lai lai, yai lai la 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 lai lai, ya la lai 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 lai, ya la lai lai, ya la lai. Yai lai la 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 lai lai, yai lai la 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 lai lai, ya la lai 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 lai, ya la lai lai, ya la lai.
So that was a pretty typical Havdalah ceremony, and in the modern world, that has become the quote traditional tune, written actually by Debbie Freeman, one of the Reform movement's leading song composers, and there are wonderful videos of an ultra Orthodox Jews singing this lovely tune, and they haven't got a clue where it comes from, but you know. Because if they did, they may not embrace it so readily. Sorry, Bernice, do you want to say something?
No, I didn't. Thank you.
So, and Havdalah is a way of creating a moment that is that separates, from the rest of the week. Not everybody has an opportunity or a desire to celebrate Shabbat for 26 hours, but that doesn't really matter. Sometimes these are opportunities to sanctify a moment, and whether it's a moment with friends and family or a moment that we have together, this is a great time to use these symbols as a way of reflecting and thinking about where we are and where we might want to be in the coming week. Sometimes Friday night is a way of beginning Shabbat, and you can sanctify things that way. Or if not, maybe Saturday night is a good opportunity. So, Edie, you want to?
Well, I know that Havdalah is separation, but it's also separating the holy or the spiritual back to the material or the physical world for like the next week.
Yeah.
It's cyclical. That's the way I look at it.
And on Sunday mornings with our school kids, we start the morning with Havdalah as a way of separating the week that they have had with this experience of learning and Jewish growth that they're going to begin their week with. So we can open it up for any questions, conversations, thoughts, ideas.
A question.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if you mentioned this, but why is it that why do we hold our fingers up?
So during the blessing of the candle, one of the traditions is to hold your fingers up in between your eyes and the candle, and the idea is that the candle is a sense or a representation of life, and if you hold your finger up next between your eyes and the candle, you'll see the blood actually in your fingers. It'll be red, and you'll see that sense of life and vitality in your hand itself through the light of the candle, in the sense that the light is giving you an insight into or a clue about the vitality and the complexities of our lives.
Trenton told me once that when you do that, then you take your hand and you put it in your pocket and carry it with you for the week.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
it's a way of embracing the warmth, right? So
Yes.
you warm your hand, and then you take that warmth and you protect it and treasure it for that week.
Interesting concept.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never heard that before.
That's a little Trenton for you.
Hi.
So the braiding of the candles, and you said like all the different wicks represent, is that the souls of your friends and your family?
Lives are multifaceted. Right?
Okay.
Lives are multifaceted.
I-
We have things from our avocations, our vocations, our community, our different parts of ourselves. They all sort of come together on Shabbat.
So is there a significance then to the number? Because you said like, the number of wicks were different and the braids, it seemed like there were usually 3 braids, but
Yeah, typically there's 6 wicks representing the 6 days of creation.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they come together in one flame, which is of course the day of Shabbat. But there can be more. There can be, I mean, as long as there's more than one, it's fine. So, and I've over the years had to make Havdalah candles in a hurry out of a whole bunch of different things. So the easiest way is you take 2 or 3 Hanukkah candles, you run them under hot water, and you twist them, and you have an instant Havdalah candle.
And to clean off the tray when you're done, stick it in the freezer
Right.
for a couple hours and the wax will just break off.
Yeah.
Tip.
Nice.
You can do that, or you can also run it under hot water and it'll melt it away.
Do that with your menorah too?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mhm. Never heard of that. Okay.
Yep.
Smart.
There you go. So, any other random questions for anything that we covered during the last several sessions?
I must say, I'm glad I attended because this was very interesting. I learned a lot.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Are we going to be doing more of these?
Yeah, I think.
I hope.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to be
Yay.
starting up your intro to Judaism course?
So the Insights to Judaism class will begin after the holidays in October, and that's the kind of soup to nuts, adult treatment of Jewish life. And so there's an hour of Judaic learning, and then there's an hour of Hebrew, and this year we'll be doing it via Zoom. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll do more, different kinds of topics and things. We did a Passover one. We did this is a Shabbat one. We'll do something. We'll see where we go.
But nothing until after the high holidays.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
Well,
our
thank you very
Rabbi.
much.
project.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm heartened to see that Carolou and I are not the only ones learning. I was concerned that this was just all old hat for all of you. So that's
That's-
wonderful.
Well,
Not for me. I'll say it. Until tonight, I didn't know what Havdalah was,
Oh,
and
Okay.
here I am. Went to Orthodox Talmud Torah in Brooklyn. Been to, and again, I always say the reason I went to the Orthodox Talmud Torah was because it was probably the cheapest one, and my parents didn't have much money, so that was a consideration. And then rest of my on and off experience had been with conservative temples, and now they reformed. And honestly, I didn't know what Havdalah was until tonight. Never experienced it.
It's interesting because I grew up and had all the, beginning of the Shabbat traditions in my home every Friday night, but I didn't know what Havdalah was until I moved to Erie and became a volunteer. So
My parents were not religious at all, even though again I went to an Orthodox temple, and no, we never had a traditional Friday night service or anything like that.
I'm here because I like the rabbi.
Nice.
I hope you're the norm rather than the exception.
And just to see if I can learn anything new, but I just like to,
yeah.
you know, keep reiterating what's going on in my mind. And yeah,
Yeah. So Carrie,
I'm very familiar with Havdalah.
Yeah.
So
So even though I grew up with all these, I find there's holes in my education and my understanding, and that's what
Absolutely.
is useful.
And I think, Janice, I think you're absolutely right, and a lot of Carrie, just so you're familiar, I think there's a lot of information that people have, and they have it in kind of little random pockets,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it you have to sort of take the needle and kind of like
Yeah.
thread the loops.
Yeah.
So that it all sort of comes together, which is really what I try to do in the insights class. People have a lot of knowledge that they knew when they were kids, and they went to some Hebrew school or religious school or something, and the tradition, at least, was that a lot of people stopped when they were 13, and it was actually the Reform movement that pushed that age further to 16. If you think about what you knew when you were 13, it isn't so much. I think one of the things that has brought Havdalah sort of back, if you will, has been camp and youth programs. Because it changed it from this very quick say 3 blessings or 4 blessings and extinguish the candle and start your week again, into this very beautiful ceremony that people could experience rather than just do. And so the song that you heard is relatively new. It's within our own lifetimes. It's probably 30, maybe 40 years old at the most. Probably written in the 70s, I would guess. And it absolutely changed the entire experience of Havdalah.
I see it as the last breath of Shabbat.
Beautiful.
Oh.
Just to put another point on my inexperience with Havdalah, before I went out to you, Rabbi, with an email, I Googled it to see what I was getting myself into.
Oh.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
And we'll
Thank
Thank you.
soon. Stay safe. Stay well.
you.
You too.
You too.
Yeah,
Okay, bye now.
I'll see you. I'll talk to you tomorrow, Janice.
Sounds good.
Oh, I get out.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.